Welcome! Today I'm going to be talking about what to do when you have some issues with your prints that need to be repaired. In this instance, drain holes for making your hollow prints, or what happens to me a lot, miniatures that break. I've been given this light curing putty by Funcrecol. It's basically a UV putty that you can fill in holes or cracks or defects. I think we could even try and glue stuff together. I don't know how well that will work because it will need to have light get to it to cure. So for example, it's not like glue where the glue just adheres and connects it wherever it touches so much as wherever it also is able to have light hit it. So let's open this up, and I'm going to fill in some holes and see how that works. Some safety information: wear safety gloves, may cause skin and eye irritation, keep away from sunlight, just like you would any of your UV resins. What we have here looks kind of like a lip balm. It's not. Don't put it on your skin, obviously. Probably going to be more like a sticky Play-Doh. I'm going to use a toothpick here. If you're good at sculpting, which I am not, I imagine you would want to do this in layers, but I'm going to do this all at once. The hole is sealed off, but now I want to make it look a little bit more like it matches the rest of the print here. And that kind of still has those brainy like tube looks in it. Hole in the bottom. This one I'm just going to go in there with my finger, try to pinch out some. Lose a bunch of it in the hole, trying to kind of put it on the edge and then slide it over. I feel like it takes longer to cure than you think, and where it's so waxy it's a little bit difficult to wipe off. I would imagine you'd have to cure this for quite a while just to make sure that it goes through all those layers, but for all intents and purposes that's sealed off. And then put it on and try and slide it off my glove, but it sticks to it. That actually worked okay. I'm going to do my patches with the light for a few minutes, and then, just in case, put it in the cure box. Sure, I could just fill this hole, but where this particular model has all these bumps in it, I don't have to be all that perfect. I could just create my own little bump on the top if I wanted, which is actually harder than it looks to do because it's so tacky and sticks to you. They did call it curing putty and not sculpting putty, which I've seen others called sculpting putty, but this seems pretty difficult to sculpt with. The glove. Maybe that's part of it too. The tips of these gloves are textured. Just make a little bump. That's good enough. So if you're going to be sculpting with your hands, I guess it would be better not to use gloves that have texture on the tips. So for this test, this should actually work pretty well because I can actually recreate that part of the sword that's missing, and there'll be more surface area for the putty to cure and hold it together. as opposed to just having, if I had a tiny amount in between there that wasn't showing anywhere, would likely not cure. For the most part, that worked. I wouldn't say that it's designed for that. Glue would be easier for doing something like that. I went to wipe it and it broke right off. So yeah, again, for putting two pieces together, it's not meant for that. Again, the only part that was really holding it together would have been the tiny outside that was actually touching, being cured by the light. Filling holes and cracks. That's your bread and butter. Mushrooms primed. And you can see how well I did with them. Doesn't look too bad. I mean, I'm not that great of a sculptor, but hard to tell there was ever a hole there. This one, not so much. This a failure of sculpting on my part. It looks more like as it. I did talk to Funcrecol, and they did suggest that perhaps kneading the putty before applying it would help it not stick to your fingers as much. So I'm going to try that. But it is also capable of curing several millimeters thick. So what else I'm going to try, just for fun, is putting it in a dice mold for some miniature dice. Felt like maybe it was getting less sticky. Another thought I had with that was maybe, kind of like when you're making dough with flour, dipping your fingers in alcohol first. But the only issue I think there would be with that is it could inhibit the cure a little bit. So you don't want to really use a whole lot. Yeah, too much. I've already, you can see it's kind of messing it up. But it's not sticking to my fingers at all. It's actually making it nice and smooth. I think that's going to make more of a mess than anything. So that's not exactly a good way to do it. It does work a little bit better. Just need it a little bit, don't need it a bunch. I think it's pretty well packed. It feels like it's pretty well packed in there, but maybe not. Now when I made these molds, they weren't made for UV resin by any means, although it is a clear mold. It's pretty thick. I put this in the cure station for about 10 minutes, hoping that that will be enough to solidify at least the outside long enough to get the model out, and then we'll be able to cure it on its own. I didn't quite have that one packed in all the way. Okay, just for good measure, I cured them for another 10 minutes in there. And it's actually still pretty malleable. It's pretty tacky. And you can see my fingerprint in it. Like, the flashing is fine, but the dye itself still feels pretty tacky. About 8 millimeters to a little over a centimeter. Okay, so another 20 minutes in, and not really tacky anymore, but that is a long time. That's 10 minutes in the mold and another 20 minutes outside of it. But to also be fair, these are very thick sections of solid resin putty. But that's just to show that you can use large sections of it at a time, that you need to use a lot of it to fill in any gaps or things like that. It will work. It does what it is meant to do. It is a little bit sticky and takes a little bit longer than I would like to cure, but it does cure and is usable for repairing holes and cracks in your models, or even maybe sculpting and making new things. So I hope this video has been helpful to you, maybe giving you some ideas of what you may use this for if you wanted to. For the most part, not something I would use very often, but I don't think you need to worry about it going bad per se. It doesn't seem like it's something that would dry out. Should last for a long time, I would imagine, but they do have the date on there, so just like a UV resin, it may be prudent to use it within a year, but I would imagine you could go longer than that with no problems. But I don't know for sure. Time would tell on that one. Until next time, go fix some of your models.